The security monitor cast a blue glow across my face as I counted the bills for the third time. $2,400. Not enough. Never enough. Hey, Noah. You still here? I scrambled to shove the cash into my desk drawer as Miguel poked his head into the security office of the underground parking garage. Yeah, just finishing some paperwork, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Man, you look terrible, working doubles again. I forced a smile. Gotta do what you gotta do, right? Miguel nodded sympathetically. Tell me about it. My second job starts in an hour. The American dream, huh? He glanced at the security monitors showing empty concrete levels. Quiet night. Level 3 has a couple of late workers, otherwise ghost town. After Miguel left, I pulled the money back out, my hands trembling. This wasn't who I was supposed to be. For 15 years, I'd been the guy people trusted, the incorruptible Noah Blue, who'd once tackled a mugger trying to break into a Mercedes. Now, I was the thief. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Amara's fever is back. 102. 4. Need to get her prescription refilled tomorrow. Insurance denied the new medication again. Love you. I closed my eyes, the weight of it all pressing down like concrete. 3 months of borrowing from the garage receipts. I'd convinced myself I'd pay it back once. Ali's treatments were covered, and Amara's chronic condition stabilized. Just temporary, just survival. The radio on my belt crackled. Security check on level 4. I ignored it. 5 more minutes, and I could deposit this into our account before the automated payment for Ali's therapy bounced. Again, the computer chimed with an email notification. I clicked it open. From Westside Parking Management subject. Audit notice. All locations. My stomach dropped as I scanned the message. Surprise audit. Tomorrow morning. All cash receipts to be verified against video surveillance. No, 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 I whispered, panic rising in my throat. There was no time to replace what I'd taken, no way to hide the discrepancies. I grabbed my phone and called Rebecca. Hey, she answered, her voice exhausted. Everything okay? Yeah, I lied, staring at the stolen money on my desk. How's Amara? Finally sleeping. The ibuprofen helped. But Noah, her voice broke slightly. The doctor says if we can't afford the new medication, her immune system might not recover properly this time. In the background, I could hear the hum of the humidifier we'd bought secondhand. I thought of my daughter's small body fighting another infection, my son's autism therapy, that cost more than our mortgage. Noah, you there? I made a mistake, Becca, I whispered, my voice breaking. A terrible mistake. What are you talking about? The alarm suddenly blared. Motion detected on level 2. I glanced at the monitor to see my supervisor walking through the garage, hours before his scheduled arrival. I have to go, I said, panic rising. I'll explain everything later. I ended the call and stared at the money on my desk. Every choice I'd made to fix one problem had only created a worse one. Like a sheep caught in thorns. Something my grandmother used to say. Each struggle to free myself had only entangled me further. The elevator dinged in the distance. Footsteps approached. I'd walked away from church years ago, after grandmother died, but a fragment of memory surfaced. Something about green pastures and still waters, and restoration. Something about a shepherd who restored souls. Mine felt beyond saving now. The door opened. Noah, my supervisor said, his face grim. We need to talk. The next morning felt like a funeral procession. I sat in the small conference room above the parking garage, surrounded by my supervisor Rick, the property manager Mr. Abadi, and a woman from corporate, whose name I'd already forgotten. The audit reports spread across the table like evidence at a crime scene. The discrepancies go back 3 months. The corporate woman said, her voice clinical. Video surveillance shows cash payments that don't match our deposit records. Rick rubbed his temples. Noah, I've known you for 5 years. Help me understand this. I stared at my hands. My kids, they're sick. Both of them. The medical bills. My voice died. Why didn't you come to us, Mr. Abadi asked quietly. We have hardship programs. Pride, I whispered. My father always said a man handles his problems alone. And where did that get you? The corporate woman snapped. Stealing from your employer. That's enough, Linda. Mr. Abadi said firmly. This man is obviously suffering. Linda gathered her papers. Policy is clear. Theft equals termination and prosecution. I'll have the police report filed by noon. After she left, Rick and Mr. Abadi sat in uncomfortable silence. I'm sorry, Noah, Rick finally said. My hands are tied. I nodded, accepting the judgment I deserved. Can I clean out my locker? Of course, take your time. As I walked through the garage one last time, collecting my few personal items, I passed the security booth where I'd sat night after night, making the wrong choices. My replacement was already being interviewed upstairs. My phone rang. Rebecca, how did the meeting go? She asked. I couldn't form the words. Noah, I'm fired, I managed. And they're pressing charges. The silence stretched like a chasm. Come home, she finally whispered. We'll figure this out together. But I couldn't go home. Not yet. Not to face Ali's questions about why Daddy looked so sad, or Amara's innocent trust that Daddy could fix anything. Instead, I found myself driving aimlessly through Los Angeles, eventually pulling into the parking lot of Shepherd's Gate Community Church. I hadn't been inside a church since grandmother's funeral 8 years ago, but something drew me to the small building tucked between a laundromat and a taco shop. The front door was unlocked. I slipped inside and sat in the back pew, surrounded by the smell of old wood and candle wax. The sanctuary was empty, except for a middle-aged man arranging flowers at the altar. He noticed me and approached carefully, as if I might bolt. I'm Pastor Michael, he said, extending his hand. You look like you're carrying the world on your shoulders. Something like that, I mumbled. Want to talk about it? He asked, and somehow, I did. The whole story poured out. The medical bills, the desperate choices, the audit, the firing. Pastor Michael listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or making small sounds of understanding. You know, he said when I finished. Jesus told a story about a shepherd who left 99 safe sheep to find one that was lost. I'm not lost, I said reflexively. I'm just broken. Sometimes those are the same thing. He leaned back in the pew. The sheep in Jesus's story didn't find its way back. The shepherd found it. I don't need rescuing, I snapped. I need a job and $20,000 to fix everything I've destroyed. Pastor Michael smiled sadly. Noah, can I tell you what I think? I think you've been trying to be the shepherd of your own life for so long. You've forgotten what it feels like to let someone else lead. Something in his words pierced through my defenses. I felt tears threatening. I don't know how to do that, I admitted. Start small. Let me help you find a lawyer. Let your wife help carry this burden. He paused. Let Jesus help restore what feels beyond repair. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. I sat between Rebecca and the public defender Pastor Michael had helped me find, watching the prosecutor outline my crimes to the judge. Rebecca's hand found mine, squeezing gently. Your Honor, my lawyer said when it was his turn. Mr. Blue has no prior record. He's made plans for full restitution to his former employer and has letters of support from his community. I glanced back to see Pastor Michael in the gallery, along with several people from the church I'd started attending, people who barely knew me, but had somehow decided I was worth supporting. The judge reviewed the file. Mr. Blue, please stand. My legs felt unsteady as I rose. What you did was wrong, the judge said, but I see evidence of genuine remorse and community support. I'm sentencing you to 2 years probation and 100 hours of community service. Relief flooded through me. No jail time, a chance to rebuild. But as we left the courthouse, reality crashed back down. I was still unemployed, still facing $20,000 in debt to the parking company, still drowning in medical bills, one step at a time. Rebecca reminded me as we drove home. That's what Pastor Michael says, right? The job interview at Sentinel Security Services felt like a long shot. Pastor Michael had arranged it through a connection, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was wasting everyone's time. So Noah, said Walter Simmons, the owner, tell me about your background. I'd prepared a careful answer that minimized the theft, but looking at Walter's kind eyes, I found myself telling the truth. All of it. I stole from my employer, I said. Ace was desperate and scared, and I made terrible choices. I'm on probation. Walter nodded slowly. Pastor Michael mentioned that. He also said, you're working to make things right. Every dollar I can spare goes to paying back what I took. But it's going to take years, I said. I appreciate your honesty. Walter consulted his notes. I need someone for night shift supervision. It's not glamorous work, but it pays 22 an hour with benefits after 90 days. I stared at him. Sir, with respect, did you hear what I said? I'm a convicted thief. I heard you. I also heard that you're taking responsibility. Walter leaned forward. Noah, I spent 3 years in prison for embezzlement when I was your age. Someone gave me a second chance when I got out. I've built a successful business by hiring people who understand the value of redemption. My throat tightened. I don't know what to say. Say you'll start Monday night. The first night at Sentinel was nerve-wracking. I was supervising security for a chain of medical buildings, responsible for 3 guards and a dozen properties. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who'd stolen from his security job, now supervising other security guards. Around 2 a.m., I was doing rounds at the pediatric clinic when I heard muffled sobbing from the parking lot. I found a young woman sitting in her car, crying. I approached carefully and tapped on her window. Ma'am, are you okay? She rolled down the window, revealing a face streaked with tears. My son, he needs surgery. The insurance company denied it again. The desperation in her voice was familiar. I'm sorry. Is there anything I can do? Unless you've got $15,000 in your pocket. Probably not. She laughed bitterly. I've been sitting here for an hour, trying to figure out what to do next. I thought about my grandmother's words. When you find someone in a pit, throw them a rope, not advice. Can I tell you about a place that might help? I said. There's a church called Shepherd's Gate. They have people who know how to navigate insurance appeals, and they've helped families with medical bills. I'm not really religious, she said. Neither was I, but sometimes help comes from unexpected places. I gave her Pastor Michael's card and watched her drive away, hoping she'd call. The next Sunday, I saw her in church with a small boy, who must have been her son. Pastor Michael introduced me to Pamela Blue. She'd been able to get her insurance appeal approved with help from the church's advocacy program. You saved us, she told me after the service. I just pointed you in the right direction, I said. Someone did the same for me. That afternoon, as I played with Amara and Ali in our small backyard, Rebecca brought me iced tea and sat beside me on the back steps. You're different, she observed. Lighter somehow. I stopped trying to carry everything alone, I said. Turns out that's exhausting. The kids have noticed too, Rebecca said. Ali asked me yesterday why Daddy smiles more now. I watched my son carefully arranging his toy cars in perfect lines. His autism made him find comfort in order. Amara was chasing bubbles, her laughter bright, despite her recent health struggles. I used to think being a good father meant protecting them from everything, I said. I was so focused on being their shield, I forgot they needed to see me to know how to ask for help. Rebecca leaned against my shoulder. Are you happy, Noah? The question surprised me. Happiness hadn't been on my radar for so long. I'm not sure I know what that means anymore, I admitted. But I'm peaceful, even with everything still unresolved. I feel like we're not alone in this. Pastor Michael's sermon today was about restoration, Rebecca said. He talked about how God doesn't just fix broken things, He makes them stronger than before. That evening, after the kids were asleep, I sat in our small living room, reading the Bible Pastor Michael had given me. I'd been working through the Psalms, finding comfort in David's honest struggles. My phone rang. Walter from Sentinel Security. Noah, sorry to call so late. Are you free to talk? Of course. I just got off the phone with the administrator at the medical complex you've been supervising. Dr. Martinez specifically requested that you be assigned permanently to their sites. Apparently, you helped one of their patients connect with resources last week. Word got around. They're impressed with your pastoral approach to security work. I smiled at the phrase, pastoral security. That's a new one. It's exactly what some of these places need. People are scared and vulnerable when they're dealing with medical crises. Having someone who understands that, who can offer more than just protection. Walter paused. I want to offer you a promotion. Day shift supervisor for our medical division. It comes with a significant raise. After I hung up, I sat in stunned silence. 6 months ago, I'd been stealing money and lying to my wife. Now I was being promoted for showing compassion. Good news? Rebecca asked, emerging from the kitchen. Very good news. I pulled her onto the couch beside me. But Becca, I need to tell you something else. Her face grew concerned. What? I want to be baptized. Her eyes widened. Really? Pastor Michael has been talking to me about it for weeks. I kept saying I wasn't ready, that I needed to have everything figured out first. I took her hands, but I realized that's the point. I don't have to have it all figured out. I just have to trust that Jesus knows the way. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. Oh, honey, I know you've been praying for this, I said. For us. I'm sorry. It took me so long to hear what you've been trying to tell me. It wasn't me you needed to hear, she whispered. It's Jesus. The baptism was scheduled for the following Sunday evening. As the day approached, I found myself nervous in a way I hadn't expected. This felt bigger than a ceremony. It felt like the final step in a journey I'd been avoiding for years. Saturday night, I was working my shift at the medical complex when I got a call that would test everything I'd learned about trust and forgiveness. Noah, this is Rick from Westside Parking, my former supervisor. I hadn't spoken to him since the day I was fired. Rick, hi, I need to tell you something, and I'm not sure how you're going to take it. His voice was strained. We caught Linda, the corporate woman who handled your case, embezzling money from multiple locations. I sat down hard in my security chair. What? She'd been skimming from accounts for over a year. When the audit revealed discrepancies at our location, she used your case to cover her tracks, made sure all the attention focused on you while she continued stealing. The room seemed to spin. How much? Over $60,000. Noah, your case was real. You did take money, but the amount was much smaller than we thought. Most of the missing funds were from her activities. I struggled to process this. Why are you telling me this? Because it changes things. The company is offering you full reinstatement with back pay if you want it. They're also reducing your restitution amount to the actual amount you took, about $4,000 instead of $20,000. I stared at the security monitors showing empty hallways. I don't understand. The audit showed. The audit was accurate about the missing money, but Linda manipulated the investigation to make it look like all the losses were from your activities. She's been arrested, and there's going to be a full investigation. After Rick hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. The vindication should have felt good. My crime was much smaller than I thought, but instead, I felt pity for Linda. I understood the desperation that led to those choices. I called Pastor Michael, despite the late hour. That's incredible news, Noah, he said after I explained. You must be relieved. I am, but I keep thinking about her, about how desperate she must have been to steal so much for so long, and I want to write her a letter. In prison, I mean, to tell her that there's hope, even when everything seems lost. Pastor Michael was quiet for a moment. You know, Noah, that might be the most Christian thing I've ever heard someone say, extending grace to the person who caused you so much pain. Someone extended grace to me when I didn't deserve it. Seems like I should pass it along. Sunday evening came with a gentle sunset painting the sky in pastels. The church had gathered at a local park with a small lake for the baptism service. About 30 people stood along the shore, including Pamela Blue and her son, Miguel from my old job, Walter from Sentinel, and several families from the medical complex who had somehow heard about the service. I stood waist deep in the cool water with Pastor Michael, wearing an old t-shirt and shorts. Rebecca sat on the shore with Amara and Ali, all three of them beaming. Noah, Pastor Michael said, his voice carrying across the water, you've told me that you believe Jesus is the Son of God. You want to follow Jesus Christ, to accept his forgiveness for your sins and his lordship over your life. Is that still true? Yes, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. For years, I tried to be the shepherd of my own life. I thought if I just worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, I could protect my family from everything. But I ended up hurting them more than helping them. I looked at Rebecca, remembering all the nights I'd come home stressed and distant, carrying burdens I wouldn't share. I want to follow the Good Shepherd instead. I continued. I trust Jesus to lead me through the valleys and to the still waters. I can't promise I won't make mistakes, but I'm done trying to do life alone. Pastor Michael smiled. Based on your public profession of faith, I now baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. The water closed over my head for a moment, cool, cleansing, symbolic of the washing away of old patterns and choices. When I emerged, sputtering and laughing, the small crowd cheered, but it was Amara's voice that cut through everything else. Daddy, you look so happy. As I waded back to shore, Rebecca wrapped me in a towel and a fierce hug. How do you feel? She whispered. I considered the question seriously, like I finally know which direction I'm supposed to walk. I said, even if I can't see very far ahead. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home and the kids were asleep, Rebecca and I sat on our back porch, looking at the stars. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mr. Blue, this is Pamela. Thank you for pointing me toward Shepherd's Gate. My son's surgery is scheduled for next month, and the church is helping with the costs. But more than that, we found a family there. I wanted you to know that your kindness that night in the parking lot changed our whole world. I showed the message to Rebecca. It's funny, she said. You were so worried about being a good provider that you almost missed becoming a good under-shepherd yourself. I'm still learning, I said, but I think that's the point. Following isn't a destination, it's a daily choice. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to the distant hum of the city. Somewhere out there, other people were facing impossible choices, carrying burdens too heavy for their shoulders, convinced they had to navigate their struggles alone. I thought about the letter I'd written to Linda, sharing my story, and Pastor Michael's contact information, about Walter's offer to expand the medical security division, recognizing that people in crisis need more than just protection. They need hope. About the conversation I'd had with Ali that afternoon, when he'd asked me why I got baptized. Because Daddy learned he doesn't have to be strong all by himself. I told him, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask for help. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. The caller ID showed a number from the West Side Parking Company. Noah Blue, Mr. Blue, this is David Westbrook, the new general manager. I know it's late, but I wanted to reach out personally about Rick's call yesterday. Okay, the offer for reinstatement is genuine, but I want to add something to it. We're starting an employee assistance program to help people facing financial hardship. Based on what Rick told me about your situation, I think you'd be the perfect person to run it. I looked at Rebecca, who was listening curiously. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Westbrook, but I actually have a job I love now. I told him. I understand, but would you consider consulting with us on developing the program? He asked. We don't want anyone else to feel so desperate they make the choices you felt forced to make. After I hung up, Rebecca shook her head in amazement. 6 months ago you were fired for stealing. Now they want to hire you to help prevent other people from stealing. God has a sense of humor, I said. Or maybe, Rebecca said, he just likes using broken people to help other broken people. I thought about that as we finally went inside. In the hallway, I paused to look at the framed photo from my baptism, me emerging from the water with joy written across my face. my family cheering from the shore, a community of people who had chosen to love us through our darkest season. The phone rang one more time. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. Is this Noah Blue? The voice was young, scared. Yes, I got your number from Pastor Michael. My name's Kevin. I work security at a parking garage downtown, and I think I need help. I've been taking money. I sat down on the couch, gesturing for Rebecca to stay. Kevin, you called the right person, I said, and you called at exactly the right time. Can you meet me for coffee tomorrow? I've got a story to tell you about sheep and shepherds and the long way home. As I hung up the phone, I realized this was what restoration looked like, not just being forgiven for your mistakes, but being used to help others find their way out of the same pit you'd fallen into. 1 year later, I stood in the security booth of the medical complex, watching the morning shift change. My team of 12 guards had been trained not just in security procedures, but in recognizing when someone needed more than protection, they needed hope. The employee assistance program I'd helped design for Westside Parking had prevented 3 potential theft cases in its first 6 months, connecting employees with resources before desperation led to destructive choices. Linda had written back from prison, thanking me for the letter and asking for information about the church's prison ministry program. Mr. Blue, I turned to see Dr. Martinez, the pediatric specialist who had first requested me for her building. Good morning, Dr. Martinez. I wanted to thank you again for what you did yesterday with the Johnson family. When their insurance was denied, you provided hope. I smiled. That's what Jesus wants us to do, right? Be a light leading others to our Savior. As she walked away, I looked out at the medical complex parking lot, remembering the night I'd found Pamela Blue crying in her car. She worked here now as a patient advocate, helping other families navigate the insurance maze. Her son's surgery had been successful, and she credited that conversation in the dark parking lot with saving more than just his health. My radio crackled. Noah, we've got a situation in Building C. Young mother with a sick baby. On my way, I said, heading toward the elevator. Some people might see this as just another security call, but I knew better. This was another lost sheep, and I had the privilege of helping the shepherd find his way to her. The work was different now. The purpose was the same as it had always been, protecting people. But I'd learned that sometimes the greatest protection you can offer someone isn't from external threats. Sometimes you protect them from the lie that they're alone. As I walked toward Building C, I thought about the psalm that had become my daily prayer. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Not perfect, not without struggles, but found and helping others find their way home too.